Can this defense step up against SMU? Because this is a nice test. This is an offense that is pretty decent in the ACC. They haven't gotten off to the greatest start, but they are still very capable of putting up a lot of yards and, most importantly, putting up a lot of points. Their quarterback is Kevin Jennings. Kevin Jennings was their starting quarterback for most of last year. All ACC caliber quarterback, definitely, despite not having the greatest start in the world to this year, is an upper half quarterback in the conference. The only real issue right now with Kevin Jennings is that he turns the ball over a lot. He's got 5 interceptions in 4 games, but otherwise, you look at his completion percentage, you look at his touchdowns, you look at his yards, you look at the fact that he's incredibly mobile, even if it doesn't necessarily show on the stat sheet with his rushing yards. He is a mobile quarterback. He does like to use his legs and roll outside the pocket. He's a very, very good quarterback. It's just the fact that he's thrown one too many interceptions through the first 4 games of this season. Syracuse, for what it's worth, they have 3 interceptions on defense this year. So can they get their hands on a couple of Kevin Jennings passes? Hopefully they can, because that could be the difference in the game on Saturday. As far as totals for this SMU offense, they are averaging about 35 points per game. That is 9th in the conference. Averaging over 420 total yards a game. That's also 8th in the ACC, rushing yards per game. 141, 9th in the conference. Passing yards, 282. That is 6th in the ACC. So pretty much in every category, they're upper half, but they're not elite in any particular category on offense. They're also an incredibly balanced offense. You go check College Reference right now. SMU, on average, they run slightly more than they pass the football. So if you're Syracuse, here's what you really need to look out for, okay? They run a lot of zone read type of plays. I already mentioned the fact that Kevin Jennings likes to roll outside the pocket. So outside contain is going to be very, very important on Kevin Jennings. Keep him in the pocket, force him to make throws in the pocket. Yes, he can certainly make throws, but if he's using his legs and scrambling outside, that's where he's probably most dangerous. It's a pick your poison type deal with a guy like Kevin Jennings. And eye discipline is going to be incredibly important for Syracuse football. I already mentioned the zone reads that they like to run. Well, you don't necessarily know who's getting the ball on any particular play. They could have a wide receiver going in motion. It looks like it could be an end around, but no, it's a handoff. But no, it's actually Kevin Jennings keeping the football. Point is, you don't really know. So eye discipline, very, very important for this Syracuse defense. And of course, hopefully when they're in position, they can actually make a tackle, right? That tackling thing, missed tackles are sometimes a bugaboo with Syracuse football, of course. Now, the rushing defense for Syracuse football. Can they stop the run against SMU? They're going to have a hard time in all likelihood. I would love to see them step up. I mentioned it on yesterday's show. I would love to be wrong about this Syracuse football defensive line. SMU, they had a terrific running back last year who's now in the NFL by the name of Brashard Smith. I think he's on the Kansas City Chiefs, but you can fact check me there if I'm wrong. They replaced him with TJ Harden, who looks terrific. Big guy, 6'2", 220 pounds. He's got 57 carries, over 300 rushing yards this season, 5 rushing touchdowns, over 5.4 yards per carry. Big physical runner, kind of like Syracuse's very own Yassine Willis. Behind him, you got Chris Johnson Jr. That's right, he is the son of former NFL running back Chris Johnson, CJ2K. If you had him in fantasy that year, congratulations on your fantasy football championship. Hopefully it's not your only fantasy football championship. Side note, I began playing fantasy football probably the year after Chris Johnson had his 2,000-yard season, because I remember the first draft I ever participated in, Chris Johnson went first overall. And I think that was really the only year where Chris Johnson went first overall, which was the year after he ran for 2,000 yards. Shout out back in the day when it was Chris Johnson and Adrian Peterson as the top running backs in fantasy football. But anyway, Chris Johnson Jr. for SMU. Sorry to go off on a little tangent there about fantasy football. He's kind of like his father. I mean, he's not as good as his father, don't get me wrong, but he's kind of like him. He's incredibly fast. He's not the biggest dude in the world, 6 foot, 184 pounds, but he's averaging 5.7 yards per carry this season. So they got a little bit of thunder with a guy like TJ Harden, and they got a little bit of lightning with Chris Johnson Jr. So overall, when you look at SMU, they may not have the same magic that they had a year ago. Currently sitting at 2-2, and I think their at-large bid for college football playoff is pretty much over. Unless they completely run the table the rest of the regular season, it's pretty much over. They're not going to make it at large at 2-2 right now. But they don't have a conference loss, just like they don't have a conference win. So I still think this is a very formidable team. I still think that this is easily an SMU team that will make a bowl in 2025. That's at minimum, they'll make a bowl. And I would not be shocked if SMU found itself in the ACC title game this season. I would not be surprised at all because last year, you think back to SMU, they had an early season loss. It was to BYU. And for the entire regular season, I think myself and many of you looked at SMU as that team, they'll eventually slip up. They'll eventually slip up. And they just didn't slip up until the conference title game. Could that be the case this season? Could their rally really begin this Saturday against Syracuse? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Syracuse fans, Syracuse alum, many of you are Syracuse fans and Syracuse alums that are watching and listening to Locked On Syracuse right now. We hope that Syracuse can win. It's going to be a tough task beating this SMU team on the road.